So I'm going to do a quick rereading of the moral landscape. So because, see, you talk about G.E. Moore's argument of infinite regress. If you claim that something's good and you equate it with something, you can also ask infinitely why the thing you're equating it with is good. Now, it seems to me that the way that you step out of that argument, and correct me if I'm wrong here, is you tell a story. I'm not trying to be smart about that. You tell two stories. You tell a story about someone who has an absolutely terrible life. They're in a jungle where nature is trying to kill them all the time, and while they're trying to be killed by nature, while nature is trying to kill them all the time, horrible barbaric thugs are making their life miserable in every possible way. Okay, so that's one pole, let's say. And then another pole, you identify, and these are hypotheticals, so I guess they're fictions. That's one way of thinking about it, even though they're extracted from real situations. They're meta-fictions, they're meta-truths, that's another way of thinking about it. You contrast a good life, and that's a life where the person has enough to eat and enough shelter, and they have the things that you would expect people to want. You say, this is a bad life, and you say, this is a good life. And then you say and then you make a side move, which I would say is that's an objectively verifiable fact. I would say, I don't think it is an objectively verifiable fact. I think it's a fundamental moral claim. And I think that's where you put your stake in the ground. And I would say, when I read that, I thought, well, if you take your jungle story, which you've extracted from a bunch of horrors and compiled, and you take your positive story, which you've extracted from a bunch of horrors, or a bunch of quasi-utopias, let's say, and compiled, you're 2/3 of the way to a landscape of hell and heaven.
Right.
Well, so then why not continue the abstraction and say, look, what we're really trying to avoid here is hell.
Oh, yeah.
What we're really trying to move towards is heaven. Yeah, but as soon as you do that, you're in a religious landscape.
No, but my name for hell is... It's very interesting because, like, you and I were talking about this at dinner. We were talking about this at dinner and how the overlap or lack of overlap between our audiences, and so like I just heard from your audience there, and
you might have heard from the odd convert.
But what's amazing to me is I have to do some work to figure out what point they think you made. Because
wait a second. Wait,
no. Hold on.
No. I said if you're going to produce a fiction, why not go right to the end?
Okay,
because you did produce a fiction.
You can tell stories by way of communicating certain ideas. I mean, that's obviously. I'm not saying stories aren't incredibly powerful and useful and inevitable, right? It's like Wait,
I think you are. You might not be saying that they're not inevitable, but you are debating their utility and power. Because you said that you don't need the story as an intermediary.
I'm not. Now we have a few doors open here, which I think we should we should extract the most out of these areas that we've touched and not run on to something else. So I think there's to talk about the utility of story, right? Which is obviously a fact about the world and about human psychology that you're reading a lot into and more into than I'm reading, right? And the people we just heard from love that you.
Well, maybe I'm reading more into it than you are. I'm not sure about that.
But you talk a lot about the primacy of stories, and you are trying to get me to admit that even I helplessly resort to storytelling to make my points, right?
Well, you did there.
I think this is a good place for us to, and I don't want us to get bogged down, but I think it's a good place for us to touch this topic of the distinction between literal and metaphorical truth, which you might want to introduce it, but because that in my mind that covers this different emphasis on stories.
Okay, briefly, but we are at 60 minutes, and we had agreed to go an hour and 15 before we start Q&A. So I agree that metaphorical truth is relevant here. Metaphorical truth is my argument that there are some things which are literally false, but if you behave as if they were true, you come out ahead of where you would if you behaved according to the fact that they are false. And so that these things hover in a kind of intermediate space. To call them false is incorrect.
Right. And I hear Jordan wanting to call them true because they're so useful, right?
Well, but you also look, this is what happens in the moral landscape, I think. Tell me why I'm wrong, because I'm really trying to understand it. See, I think you dealt with G.E. Moore's problem of infinite regress by staking a moral proposition. And your moral proposition was, look, here's a way things can be horrible, and here's a way things can be good. Can we accept that this is horrible and this is good, and that we should move towards good? And if the answer is yes, we can accept that, then we can proceed. And maybe we can even proceed with extracting values from facts, but we have to accept that a priori presupposition first. And you insist that we have to accept it because it's objectively true. And I don't think that's correct.
Well, so let me just get the proposition clear. Yeah. So my argument is that the worst possible misery for everyone is bad.
That's hell.
Okay, so hell is the religious version of that, but you can forget about religion or whether there's a God or anything else. That we live in a universe that admits of the possibility of experience. I'm asking you to imagine a universe where every conscious mind, every mind that can have an experience, is tuned to the worst possible experience for that mind for as long as possible. So there's no silver lining, there are no lessons learned. Everything that can suffer suffers as much as it possibly can for as long as it can. Now that includes human beings, it includes animals, it includes future AI that we might build that can suffer. It includes beings that we'll never know about, right? So my argument is that's bad. If anything is bad, that's bad.
Okay, we don't disagree that hell is bad.
If the word bad is going to mean anything, that's bad. And you can't say...
That's fine, but it's not a factual claim.
No, it is. It's a claim about... So I would argue to you, and again, it's hard to impart this intuition if someone doesn't share it, but if someone doesn't share this intuition, I have no way of interpreting any other word that comes out of their mouth after they admit they don't share this. So just imagine someone saying...
But even that doesn't make it a factual claim.
No, again...
So you guys are going to get stuck here, and I think you're going to...
Yeah. No, again, give us 1 more minute.
Okay, one more minute.
1 more minute, because I don't think we'll get stuck here. Every claim we make about anything, at a certain point, if you trace all the tools we're using down to, turtles all the way down to something that we can't explain and justify, right? This is true of physics, it's true of mathematics. I just said it was true of arithmetic. Gödel proved it's true of arithmetic. I mean, we have intuitions of truth that can't be cashed out by recourse to the system itself. And it's true morally, I would argue, in this sense, that yes, the worst possible misery for everyone is bad. And if you're going to say, well, okay, who knows? Maybe it's good.
What does bad mean?
What bad means means that...
Again, you guys are going to get stuck. Let me try to help.
It's okay. Really. It's okay. What does bad mean?
I agree with you. I really think that we're going to go down a rabbit hole here, and we'll never come back out.
This is a crucial issue. It's an absolutely crucial issue.
This is why you get stuck.
All right, so we have a mutiny here. We're at war with our moderator.
Yes.
Give us 2 more minutes because it is crucial.
Okay. Well, so let me. I mean, honestly.
By the way, I have a prediction that in 2 minutes we won't be any farther than we are now.
Okay, let's bet. I'll bet you $1. You're literally playing devil's advocate here because you don't believe that hell might be good.
No,
right?
of course not.
Okay,
I didn't say that for a second.
You're willing,
I agree that it's bad by definition.
This isn't I would argue that anything you would, if you're going to use the word bad and good, or better and worse, or make any value judgment about anything, it will, implicit in those judgments will be an acknowledgement, whether you're going to acknowledge it or not when I put the question to you, that the worst possible misery for everyone is bad. You can't use the word bad unless you're going to acknowledge that.
I'm not disagreeing in the least about that.
Okay,
not a bit.
So it's built into your good and badding with respect to every other situation in life.
Fine, I agree.
Like, if you're going home tomorrow and a bus drives by and cuts your hand off, and you say, well, that was bad. It only makes sense with reference to this underlying claim. Well, it would be worse if the other hand got cut off too, and everyone's hands got cut off.
You're beating a dead horse here, man. I agree with you.
So I'm saying that everyone assumes this, whether they claim to or not.
Okay.
So to say, and this is how I bring G.E. Moore's argument to end.
Yeah, right.
He says his argument depends on it being intelligible at that point to say, well, is that really bad? Is it really bad? Okay, well, what would really bad be if the worst possible misery for everyone didn't get you there, right? There's no other space to occupy.
I'm also not disputing the utility of your move to bring G.E. Moore's infinite regress to an end. I'm disputing something very specific. I'm disputing the issue that that's a factual claim. That's all.
Well,
hell is bad. We should avoid it. It brings Moore's infinite regress to an end. All of that, I agree.
It's deeper than a factual claim. It's just a claim about it's a claim that is required to make any value judgment intelligible.
Right, any value judgment.
So,
yes.
so it's like it's not an arithmetical claim. So an arithmetical claim about addition in this case is.
Now you're making my point for me.
You could say the same thing. You could say, when I say 2 + 2 makes 4, you could say, but is that a factual claim? And there's some way of jiggering the way you talk about facts with respect to mathematics, where I could say, well, it's not a factual claim, but it's an arithmetical claim. It's a mathematical claim.
Well, right? I'm also not trying to.
I just don't see a need to balkanize our claims in this way.
Yep, fine. What I'm trying to do is what I'm really trying to do. We need, the problem I have with your argument, and this isn't, I don't mean that you're wrong. I see what you're doing, and I see why you're doing it, and it's, as far as I can tell, it's laudable. But the problem is that, as far as I can tell, there's problems it doesn't solve, and there's other problems it leaves unaddressed that don't have to be unsolved or unaddressed. And one of the problems is this problem of the intermediary interpretive structure. And you already said we need intuitions to guide our interrelationship with facts. Okay, so we've already agreed on that. So the question is, what are the nature of these intuitions? And I'm saying some of those intuitions take the place of stories, take the form of stories, but even more than that. So I'm going to go after the hell thing again, okay? Because you said, well, it's bad, and you made sure that I also agreed with that, which I do. I agree with that. And then it's a point of profound agreement between you and I. Like, I've spent my entire life trying to understand why people did the worst things they could possibly imagine in the service of their dogmatic beliefs. And so I think that that's not good, seriously. And I'm no fan of moral relativism. So we're on the same page there. Now, but what I noticed when you wrote The Moral Landscape is you tell it, and I'm not trying to trap you. You tell a story about. It looks to me like it's a story about heaven versus hell, essentially. Let me use that language momentarily. But it's also a story about good versus evil. And this is why. It's because the question is, what's bad about hell? Now, you say the suffering. It's like, fair enough, man. True enough, but not true enough. So in Dante's vision...
What's also bad about hell? In addition to the suffering.
The actions that put you there, the malevolence that generates it.
Okay, but that's part of the suffering. So
No, it's not. No, it's not. It's not the same as the suffering. It's not the having your hand cut off. It's the pleasure that's derived by the person who cut it off. And that is a different thing.
That's more. But that's part of my picture.
Well, but wait, it's an important. The distinction is important. For example,
but Jordan, my picture of the moral landscape includes all of this. It includes everything that, and this is why I don't readily answer to the name of utilitarian or consequentialist, because the way those views tend to be taught, they tend to take as in the tally of consequences, you leave out the psychological implications of being the sort of person who would have sought those consequences or behaved that way, right? So I would grant you, and I'm explicit about this whenever I talk about this, that part of the picture of any consequentialist discussion of well-being is everything about the human mind and social relationships and societies born of all the individuals living together. Everything there that leads to different states of consciousness. So it's like you having negative intentions towards other people that give you that produce certain negative actions in the world. those intentions themselves are part of the consequential picture. Those intentions themselves close the door to certain kinds of positive mental states that you don't have. Let's say you don't have compassion because you wake up every morning just trying to figure out how to manipulate people. Well, not being able to feel compassion for other people is a bad thing for many reasons we could adduce. And yet the usual consequentialist picture just looks at what's happening out in the world in terms of the body count, and that's not, it's all part of this picture. We're all talking, anything that can possibly affect a conscious mind anywhere is part of the picture that I'm painting, that I'm calling the moral landscape.